A behemoth of its time, the Mac Pro 5.1 is an undeniably weakening machine in 2024. Mostly to blame for this are the slow, inefficient CPUs it has from over a decade ago, not to mention the thing being based on DDR3 motherboards with slow RAM and hard drive connections. Despite these issues, I still use mine every day. Here's my setup and how I managed to make the thing work in 2024. I got this 5.1 in 2022 for $75. It came with two SSDs, a 120GB for macOS Mojave, and a 240GB for data, as well as a 6-core Xeon W5680 and a Radeon R9 280 with a custom ROM to display boot screens on these Macs. That sort of a deal is something you really don't see every day. I'd like to stress though, you should aim to pay something similar if you're getting one these days. There's many reasons for avoiding spending a lot of money on a Mac like this at the moment, which I'll go over in depth later. The Mac Pro 5.1 has always been popular for its insane customizability. Thanks to a host of upgrades, my spec list now goes like this. For the CPU, I have an Intel Xeon X5690 with 6 cores and a max clock speed of 3.46 GHz. I went with this upgrade because the X-numbered Xeons for this Mac can be installed in pairs. If I want a second CPU so I can have 12 cores, I just need to buy another, and then find a dual CPU tray. The trays slide out super easily, which makes for a quick upgrade without many skills necessary. The trays are upwards of $100 in the UK right now though, and becoming rarer. Bit of a problem, so for that reason I'd suggest you buy one to start with that comes with a dual CPU tray if you can find it. The core count on the X5690 is not half bad. 6 cores will get the job done for most tasks these days. When it comes to clock speed though, the 3.46 GHz max of this CPU is not competitive with many processors beyond 2017. In use for gaming, that's a big issue actually. In 2 games I've started to see a bottleneck form where my GPU is getting away from the CPU in performance. These 2 oddly specific titles are Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077. In work-related tasks, the X5690 is generally alright to do what I need it for. Editing 1080p 60 video goes relatively smoothly. Having a lot of RAM can help with things like multitasking and running resource-intensive apps, so that's what we're going to talk about next. My computer has 48GB of RAM comprised of 3 sticks, each 16GB. Running memory in triple channel mode nets you a bit of performance boost, as it gives you more bandwidth to work with, so I decided to go with the 48 instead of 64GB. Unfortunately, DDR3 memory is all the 5.1 is capable of running, with 1333 MHz the maximum clock speed. Even in 2010, this wasn't particularly impressive speed. 14 years later, we have 8000 MHz modules of DDR5, and the 5.1's memory has been all but left in the dust, really. An obvious benefit to this Mac though is its propensity for more memory than most other machines these days, despite its low speed. 128GB is the theoretical max amount of memory in a dual CPU 5.1. Not bad. As far as storage goes, I have a 500GB PCIe NVMe drive running macOS Monterey using the OpenCore Legacy Patcher. Booting from my fastest SSD means the OS is fast, and moving things about in my computer's folders is pretty snappy. This should go without saying, but you really don't want to be booting macOS off a hard drive. SSDs are proven to be up to 12 times faster. I have a 256GB SATA SSD in a sled running macOS Mojave, which is an OS that runs completely natively on the 5.1 as it was intended to by Apple. I also have a 128GB SATA SSD in another sled running Windows 10. Getting Windows onto the 5.1 is a bit of a no-brainer in my opinion. You get access to Steam Gaming, all of the Windows versions of apps, and all the other stuff Windows is good for, I guess. No, seriously, give it a go though. Above the sleds, occupying the spot where the second optical disk drive might be on other 5.1s, is a 4TB SATA hard drive. I actually repurposed this from being an Xbox game drive. 4TB is enough to have virtually all of my games downloaded, and keep the bulk of my files from each of my OSs in. To be honest, I've racked up quite a sum of video files from filming and editing my YouTube videos most weeks over the last year. Soon I'm going to invest in a couple of terabytes of SSD storage for quick access to all of that footage, as it's all in the cloud right now. The graphics card on my Mac Pro 5.1 is AMD's Radeon RX 6600 XT. I've been over this a lot in older videos, and the situation hasn't changed. I bought the card last summer from MacVid Cards EU, a small company in Poland who flash regular graphics cards with custom ROMs in order to give Mac Pros boot screens upon startup. The long and the short of it is, Nvidia cards haven't been supported in macOS since 2017's High Sierra. RTX 30 series cards and above won't even boot into Windows either. AMD cards are the way to go then, but most won't show you a boot screen at startup since the 5.1 runs EFI firmware, which is not seen a lot in the regular PC world. Mac flashed cards negate this issue and will show you the boot screen at startup from which you can choose your OS. I bought the 6600 XT as I didn't know how to flash cards myself. It's doable, don't get me wrong, but to be honest, I still don't know how. If you wish to save some money, definitely look further down the route of flashing one yourself. In terms of performance, the 6600 XT is pretty perfect for the 5.1. It offers a really good level of performance, about that of a GTX 1080 Ti or an RTX 4060. I can run almost all games at max settings at 1080p, and most of them at 1440p too. I'm not into 3D rendering workloads, and don't do any form of GPU intense work, but I'm aware these things offer a pretty high standard when it comes to these sorts of tasks. I think gaming at 4K on a 6600 XT is a bit of a stretch. It would definitely stretch the CPU as well, so to be honest I'd recommend getting a 1440p display and leaving it there. An important modernization upgrade that most people don't talk about a whole lot for the 5.1 is the Airport card. The card handles Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, as well as their associated services like AirDrop and Handoff. I've put the Airport card from a 2015 iMac into my 5.1 and taken out the old one. It requires some extra cabling which you'll have to either fabricate yourself or order online, but it's seriously worth it. I won't go into the nitty-gritty numbers, but not only does upgrading your card give you faster theoretical Wi-Fi speeds, it makes things like doing AirDrop and handoff between your other Apple devices work super easily. It also means the Mac can be used as an AirPlay 2 device, which I think is sick and a lot of fun to use when hooked up to speakers, really. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure upgrading the Wi-Fi card to the 2015 iMacs means you can unlock your Mac with your Apple Watch, which I guess is useful if you have an Apple Watch. Speaking of watch, thanks for watching. That's about all I've got to go over regarding my 5.1. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video so you don't miss next week's. My Patreon is linked in the description if you fancy contributing financially and costs $3.99. It's a bit more personal and I show my face there, as well as talking about which computers I'm using and making videos on. Currently there aren't actually any members, so if you do become one you will quite literally be getting content no one else gets. See you guys next week.